Hello people, I'm Rachelle Bezuidenhout and I'm a teacher for English FAL at Hoërskool Rustenburg. These are my learners, Marley Kutsia, Laila Brits and Remofilwe Dube. We are very excited to present a lesson on speech writing with you today and prepared reading, as that is task 5 and 6 in your portfolios. Okay, let's get started. Are you ready, guys? Okay. Can you see? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Okay. So, lesson 1, reading and speaking, focus on task 5 and 6, prepared reading and prepared speech. In this lesson, I will teach you how to select an appropriate text for reading and how to read the text well. That is important because it counts for your oral mark. At the end of the year, your oral mark counts 50 out of 400, so this is very important. We will look at tips and tricks for writing and presenting an excellent speech. The tips for speech writing may also be used when writing an essay, except you obviously won't say ladies and gentlemen in an essay. Hey, you don't address people. Now, for the prepared reading, the first step obviously is selecting a text. Marley, what do you do? How do you select a text usually?
Usually I scan it quickly and then see if it interests me. Otherwise, I just move on to the next one.
Perfect. That's the perfect way. It must interest you. Hey, it must be personal. First of all, you must look at the length. Obviously, you're not going to read a whole Shakespearean drama in class. So you must ensure that your text is between 1 and 3 minutes long when read aloud. How do you know? It's about 1 page long. Read it aloud beforehand to check the length. It must be interesting or entertaining. Like Marley, you said something that you find interesting. That's perfect, because you will read it then with passion. Hey, ensure the passage is about a topic that is either interesting, factual, or entertaining, funny. Pick a topic that interests you. Now, what if you are interested in hunting, for example, but you know for a fact that your teacher is a vegetarian and very much opposed to the eating of animals? Is that okay? Laila?
No, ma'am, because it doesn't persuade the audience that your topic is interesting enough for them.
Well, yes and no. It doesn't really matter. It must be interesting to you, but it mustn't be offensive to your audience. So you can't know whether there are any vegetarians in your audience, but you know that you can't read something that's offensive, racist or sexist, for example. Hey, okay. Then emotion. Pick a passage which allows you to vary your tone and facial expressions now and then. Now, how can you vary your facial expressions while you read? You must look up every now and again. Nothing is more boring than someone just reading and keeping their eyes on their text all the time. Hey, you must look up and make eye contact at least once during your reading. Now, where to find passages? Magazines and newspapers are excellent resources. Use an article from a magazine that you regularly read. If you are, for example, a nature lover, read an article from National Geographic. If you are someone who likes fashion, read an article from a fashion magazine. That's perfectly fine. Remember to make copies for your teacher as well, and that your text must be able to stand alone. It doesn't help if you come and read a passage from your favorite book and the teacher has no idea how it fits in with the whole of the book. Hey, because then it's not going to make sense and you're not going to get your best mark. So even if you take something from a book, make sure that it can stand alone. Okay, are there any questions regarding selecting a text? Are you fine? Good. Prepared reading, then practice your reading. People, reading aloud is not a skill that we have naturally. It is something that you have to practice. So practice reading in the mirror at first, practice reading in front of your parents, Get an audience and gain that confidence when you do so. Check the rubric that your teacher will use to evaluate your reading and ensure that you fulfill all the requirements. In other words, if it says use props, make sure you have a prop. If it says make eye contact, you must look up at least one time. Are there any questions regarding prepared reading? Can we finish off with that? That's easy enough, hey? Let's go on to prepared speech. Dewey, you are a public speaker. How do you go about selecting a topic when you do a speech?
When selecting a topic, I usually choose a topic that I know I can get as much information that I can and can be able to express myself freely in the topic.
Yes, so something that you know a lot about. That's perfect, hey? That's exactly what I say here in the second point. The first and most important step to any writing assignment is to select an appropriate topic. If I'm going to write about fixing cars, for example, it's going to be a very short speech because I don't know anything about that. Hey, so pick something that you are passionate about or know a lot about. What happens when none of the topics speak to you? If you don't know anything about any one of the topics, then you do a brainstorm. Do you remember what a brainstorm is, guys? Can anyone tell me? Or must I remind you? Yes, Marley?
Well, a brainstorm is when you collect all of your ideas on a paper. So anything that comes to mind when you think of a specific word like love or people or anything.
Yes, that's perfect. So do a brainstorm, check that all your ideas, everything that comes to mind, and one idea will lead to another. Hey, it will escalate. Then before you start actually writing your speech, when you've selected the topic, you must know what type of speech you are going to write because that relates to the purpose of the speech. A speech can be informative, motivational, persuasive, entertaining, and the type of speech relates to why you are going to say this speech. Now you're going to tell me, ma'am, but I'm saying this speech for marks. Now that's not a type of speech, hey? One for marks. You have to pretend that you are in some kind of setting where you are going to deliver this speech for something other than marks. Okay. In last year's end exam paper 3, the speech topic was that you had to motivate people about the importance of reading. So that would be motivational or persuasive. What is an informative speech? That is when you give information about something. Facts, figures, statistics. Motivational is when you motivate someone, when you want someone to act a certain way and you motivate them. Like let's say you are a personal trainer, for example, and you have to give a speech to a whole hall full of people who don't exercise ever. You are going to want to motivate them to get them going. Persuasive is when you want to convince someone. That is the typical public speaking kind of speech where you prove a point. Girls are smarter than boys, or dogs are better than cats, or whatever. Whatever point you are going to prove, that is a persuasive speech. The last one is just for entertaining. That is, for example, if you are at a wedding and you are asked to give a speech about the couple, that will most likely be more entertaining. Make jokes, use humor, that sort of thing. Speeches may be a mixture of types. If you want someone to give money to save rhinos, for example, your speech will most likely be informative and persuasive. Do you understand where I'm at the moment? Okay, I don't need to redo anything. Then the structure of a speech. The next step after you have chosen your topic and you know the type of speech that you want to write is to have a look at the structure of the speech. You need to have an introduction. You must address the chairperson and audience. Then the statement, the body, the therefore, and the conclusion. Now, I don't think any of you understand at the moment what I mean with the therefore and the statement, hey? Or do you have some idea what I'm talking about? Not really. Okay, in the next slide, we will discuss all of those in detail. First of all, the introduction. How do you usually write your introductions? Laila, what do you use when you want to make a good introduction?
Ma'am, I usually quote or use a line that grabs the audience attention, and then I use good afternoon or good evening, ma'am and class, or something in that matter.
Okay, that's perfect. And your quotes, do you get them from songs you know, or do you learn quotes from Pinterest or whatever?
Ma'am, usually no, usually I search up quotes that inspire me. I don't usually pick random quotes because it puts meaning into the whole speech you're going to portray to the audience.
Okay, that's perfect. But sometimes you're in an exam setting and you have to write a speech, hey? Then you'll tell me, but how am I supposed to get quotes? They won't let me take out my phone, which is very true. Hey, we won't. You know songs. You know many songs and lyrics. You can quote from them. You can use a joke. Any kind of joke, you know, that's as long as it's not dirty, hey? A short story from your own life, but it must be very short. A statistic or a fact, something that's shocking, hey, like 50% of rhinos are poached each year. A poem, that's also very effective. I know that you know at least 10 because we are doing 10 with you this year. A rhetorical question. Now that can be a very effective way to start a speech. Not something like, money, 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 what is money? Something like, what would the world be like if there were no more rhinos? That's something that gets the audience thinking, hey, so it's a very effective device to use. You can write the introduction and conclusion last. It is often the most difficult to write and you get stuck. Writing the body first allows you to formulate an introduction and conclusion as you write. People, did you know that you can write your introduction last? Is that where you often get stuck, when you have to think up a powerful introduction? Or don't you have problems imagining an introduction?
Ma'am, I would say the introduction isn't the problem. I think the ending, the conclusion is.
Yes. Okay, we'll get to that. The ending is also difficult, hey? But if you struggle with the introduction, try and write it last. When you have your whole speech, your thoughts have been placed in order, and then the introduction will come more naturally. Then there's the body of the speech. You start with addressing the chairperson and or audience, like Laila said, dear ma'am and class, or dear chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, or just ladies and gentlemen, whoever you are addressing, you address them. Formulate what your speech will be about in one sentence. Today I will convince you that we should stop rhino poaching, or that money is the root to all evil, or whatever your speech is about, you state that in one topic sentence. Divide your body into 2 or 3 main thoughts. Substantiate with examples, quotes, statistics, opinions of experts. For example, each paragraph you write can have a topic sentence, an elaboration, proof, and a conclusion. Repeat that 2 or 3 times. Now, you may not know what I'm talking about when I say topic sentence, elaboration, proof, and conclusion. It's just one of the tricks that you can use when you write a speech, which I'll explain to you just now. The body. Each paragraph consists of a main thought. Hey, Dube, when you write your Audiocopia speeches, you have 3 main thoughts, 3 arguments that you divide them into, hey, that start with topic sentences.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So the main thought of your paragraph, for example, rhino poachers should be given at least a 20-year prison sentence. That is what your argument will be about. Even if you're going to write an informative speech, that paragraph will be about the information that you're just giving. Okay. Then the elaboration. To elaborate means to extend, to say more about something. The elaboration expands further on the topic sentence. It doesn't just repeat it in other words. Okay, so you will say, for example, if your topic sentence was rhino poachers should be given at least a 20-year present sentence, the elaboration will be something like, when people know they will face long present sentences, they will be less likely to poach rhinos. Do you understand where I'm coming from at the moment? Or must I explain elaboration more? Must I elaborate? Are you fine? Just make a thumbs up. Okay. Then proof, give a statistic, example, expert opinion. When you're in an exam setting and you have to write a speech, obviously you can't research statistics, but you can imagine. Hey, you can say, at least 50% of rhino poachers are bad people. Or I read in a newspaper once that countries that have stricter sentences have fewer rhinos poached every year. You don't have to give the whole reference and everything of who said it. You can just write plus minus where you read something in a newspaper, in a magazine, on Facebook, whatever. Then lastly, your conclusion. This is in your paragraph now. Each paragraph has a little conclusion as well. Hey, sum up what you said in previous sentences. Therefore, if we have any hope of saving the rhinos, we should implement harsher sentences immediately. Okay, so we have the introduction so far. You know how to do that. Then the statement, what your speech must be about, and now you know how to write the body. 3 or 4 main paragraphs with the topic, sentence, elaboration, proof, and conclusion. Now let's have a look at the last part, which is the conclusion. The conclusion comes in 2 parts. The first part is a summing up of the arguments that you have given. Like, let's say you wrote a speech about rhino poaching, for example. You will say, therefore, rhino poachers should receive stricter sentences, all rhinos should be tagged, and money should be raised for more rangers, or whatever. Okay, quickly sum up your arguments or your main points in one small sentence. Then the more poetic part, and Leila, that's the part I think you have problems with. Hey, you said earlier the conclusion is the most difficult part. The conclusion works best when it links to the introduction. Okay. When you start with a rhetorical question, for example, you can answer your question in the conclusion. What would a world without rhinos be like? It would be a grim place indeed. Or when you start with a poem, you can start with 2 lines of a poem and then end with another 2 lines or the same 2 lines. From the road not taken, for example, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood and I took the one less traveled by. And then end with the same lines or different lines from the same poem. You can end with another quotation even if you want to, or with the same quotation and just say then how it fits in with your speech. If you told a joke, for example, at the beginning, you can end with another joke or with the same joke, just in different words. The only thing about the introduction or the conclusion is that it must in some way link to the introduction so that you can prove that your speech has come full circle. Okay. It should be like a period at the end of a sentence. It should just finish it off well. Okay, guys, are there any questions? Should I go back to any of the slides? Are you fine? Okay, let me just unshare my screen quickly. Okay, people, thank you for a lovely lesson. I hope that you will be able to do your speech writing. We have a few more minutes left. Can we quickly give the other learners who are listening some pointers on where to find sources, where to find information for speeches? Do you just Google and use Wikipedia? What sources do you usually use?
Well, Who's talking? Usually my mom is a very good source. She can whip up anything from her brain and her books. So I usually or go to her or I just Google.
Okay, yes. Are you allowed to use your mother as a source? Yes, of course. Examples from your own life or from someone you know's life is a very good, it's a way of fleshing out your speech. Hey. Nuwe, what do you use?
Usually I read a lot of books, so books, and sometimes when I read online articles, the statistics do come in good hand.
Yes. And there are good online resources and bad ones. Hey, we must use credible ones. Always look for expert opinions. Dr. So-and-so said this, or a professor of whatever has said this. Those are more credible sources than your regular whoever said that. Okay, guys, I think we are done now. Thank you for a lovely session and have a nice evening.